On this episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, the devastating story of a family of 4 who were butchered in their sleep. Coming up right after this. Hello guys. Welcome to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. I'm your host Belinda Brady, and welcome guys. Welcome to my little one girl podcast where I talk about true Australian murders while I'm drinking coffee. And I don't know about you guys, but I hope you've had a better week than I have. I've had a birthday. Yes, I did turn 21 again. And then I had a tooth infection, which turned into a tooth extraction, which has turned into another bit of an infection. So I am drinking coffee during this episode. It is just lukewarm. I can't have anything too hot while this extraction heals. But I knew this tooth would not go down without a fight. I just knew it, and unfortunately, I proved myself right. So hopefully, this is it. Hopefully, this is the end of it. I'm on a good dose of antibiotics, so hopefully that clears it up, and I can get on with my life. I hope you've had a better week than me. The birthday was great. I had a lovely birthday, and then it just kind of went pear-shaped after that. But thank you guys for listening. I really do appreciate you all. A quick look at where you guys are listening to me from. I've got some listeners from Germany, from Cyprus and Spain. That is so cool. And I've also got some listeners from the US and New Zealand and Denmark, and that's really cool. I love that. And Latvia. Love that. And what else have I got? Sorry, I am drinking. I did say I'm drinking a lukewarm coffee. I do have it with some pumpkin, maple pumpkin syrup, which is not too bad. I'm not overly loving it, but it's not too bad. And of course, if you do want to subscribe to my podcast, you can. It would be a wonderful help. You can buy me a coffee. And if you do subscribe, we will get bonus ghost story episodes because Australia is beautifully haunted. Let's find out about these ghosties together. So whatever you're up to, guys, whatever you're up to, if you're driving, gymming, sleeping, working, walking, doing some housework, however you listen to me, settle in, lend me your ears, and let's go. And I will give you a trigger warning for this episode. It does discuss the murder and sexual abuse of young children and a corpse. So listener discretion is advised. There are some murders that just stay with you. Some are just so hard to wrap our heads around that we can't understand the why or the how. We can't understand how a human being could do that to another human being or how they could do that to a child. But we know differently. We know these things happen, and I guess sometimes we could become a bit immune to the horrible things that do happen in this world. But every now and then a crime happens that's so horrific it stays with you. And this case is I can't get my head around it. I remember watching a documentary on it years ago, and I actually felt physically sick watching it. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason for it. There's nothing. It's awful. So I will also give you another heads up. This one does just discuss the murder and sexual assault of children. So please be aware if this is something that is distressing for you. A young mother and her 3 children, all brutally slaughtered, and slaughtered is the correct term for this because that is what happened to them, and they were slaughtered while they slept. The randomness and the brutal nature of these murders is so unfathomable to most of us that the thought of wiping out an entire family while they slept would never ever cross our minds. It's not something that we would even think about. But on one night in the early hours of a summer's evening in 1993, a young man decided he was going to do just that. Karen MacKenzie, aged 31, was a single mother to 3 children: Daniel, who was 16, Amara, who was 7, and Katrina, who was 5. Now, Karen had Daniel young, and he lived with his relatives until he decided he was going to go live with his mother at the age of 14. Karen lived on a farm in Greenough in Western Australia, and it was located on a remote 10-acre property, and the area itself, which was a farming area, was sparsely populated. Now, the nearest city is Geraldton, which is about 25 kilometres away, and the state's capital, which is Perth, is around 400 kilometres away. Now, the family were close, and all 3 children helped their mum around the property. And Daniel loved his half sisters and was settling in really well with his new surrounds and his mum and his half sisters. And Amara and Katrina were happy and loved their life on the farm. They had friends in the close-knit farming community and were well liked. So all in all, they were a happy family. They loved their little life together, and they were well liked in the community. No one had anything bad to say about them. All that changed in the early hours of the 22nd of February 1993. It was around 3 a.m. when Daniel, who was still awake, heard a car pull up near the property. Curious to see who was paying the family a visit at such an hour, Daniel left the house and walked up the long driveway to greet whoever this visitor was. Now, the visitor, not known to Daniel until it was too late, was carrying a tomahawk-style axe, and when Daniel greeted him, he struck him repeatedly in the head with the axe, killing him. The visitor then entered the house and found Karen asleep in the lounge room, where he too attacked her, killing her with the same tomahawk he had used to kill her son. He then went to the bathroom, grabbed a bottle of sorbeline cream, and put a plastic bag over Karen's head, where he then raped her corpse. When he was done, he went to the bedrooms of Amara and Katrina, who were in separate bedrooms and had slept through the murders of their mother and brother, and murdered both little girls in the same fashion. This person then hopped in their car and drove away. In a few blood-soaked minutes, he had wiped out an entire family and left a crime scene so shocking that it would haunt attending police officers for the rest of their lives, and even stop some of them from attending murder scenes ever again. Now, when the sun rose that awful morning, a family friend pulled up on the driveway of the farm. They were coming to visit the family, and they came across Daniel's butchered body still lying face down in the driveway. Now, too scared to venture into the house, this family friend called the police, and Sergeant Brian Jones was one of the first responders to reach the remote farm. And after seeing Daniel's body on the driveway, he entered the house, where he came across the horrific scene. Now, other police officers who followed, some of them vomited, had to leave the house and vomit when they saw what was in there. Now, thanks to the rural location of the farm, the police were up against it from the beginning, and they faced hurdles in securing the expansive rural grounds and getting manpower to help that happen. So they wanted to try and lock everything down to stop people getting in and out. But because the area was so vast, it was and they didn't have the manpower, it was a struggle. Meanwhile, in Queensland, the state of Queensland, which is on the opposite side of the country to Western Australia, Evelyn Clow, Karen's sister, had no idea what had happened until her brother called her, saying he had heard on the radio that a woman fitting Karen's age description and her children had been found murdered in Greenough. Now, he asked Evelyn to call Karen to see that she was okay, so she did. She called and called and called. There was no answer. Or sometimes there would be an engaged signal, and then it would just ring out. Now, you've got to remember, guys, this was before mobile phones, so landlines that was it. That's all we had. Not knowing what to do, Evelyn decided to record the evening news as she and her husband were heading out for a bit of time. And when she got home and she watched it, there was a report about the shocking murders of 4 people in the area that her sister lived in, but little info, no other info was given, but she knew in her gut that it was her sister and her kids. She just knew. Her husband called the police to see if he could get any information at all. And when he was on the phone to the police, he turned to her and he had tears streaming down his face. And that confirmed it. Evelyn's worst fears had been confirmed. Her sister and her beautiful kids had all been horrifically murdered. Over in Greenough, as the news of the horrible murders got around, locals were terrified. Like this didn't happen. So everyone was like, my God, there's a madman getting around. And with the police not having any leads on suspects, everyone was a suspect. Locals locked their doors and looked at friends they had known for years with a quiet suspicion. Now, police scoured the area looking for evidence, and they were there. They were on the property for 7 days getting everything they could find, and they did find something that would become their smoking gun, but they didn't know it at the time. Meanwhile, the funerals for Karen, Daniel, Amara and Katrina were held on the 5th of March. They were attended by hundreds of mourners and, as we would later find out, and unbeknownst to the mourners, the killer himself also attended. Now, for 5 weeks, police interviewed everyone and anyone connected to the family or anyone in the area. And initially, they had 72 suspects. And they all had their fingerprints taken. But thanks to some DNA, they narrowed it down to one person. Now, at the crime scene, police found a fingerprint on a bedroom door. And this fingerprint had been preserved in sorbeline cream. So whoever had touched that door actually had a bit of sorbeline cream on his hand. So they actually removed the whole door and sent it away for forensic analysis. Now, they found that the fingerprints on that door matched the fingerprints found on Karen's body after the killer had left, after he had killed her and raped her. They had their smoking gun, and they very quickly found out that those fingerprints matched the fingerprints of a man by the name of William Patrick Mitchell. William was a 24-year-old farmhand who was known to Karen, and it was speculated that she had rejected his advances at a party a few weeks before she was killed. Now, while the police were getting ready to arrest William, police divers also managed to find the murder weapon, which was a tomahawk, in the Greenough River, and it still had human hair stuck to it. Now, police discovered that William was a bit of a loner, and thanks to his poverty-stricken childhood, he was the target for bullies. He had 5 brothers and sisters, and friends speculate that the turning point in his life was when his mother died when he was 11. He eventually fell into the wrong crowd and started using drugs, though no one who knew him ever thought he'd be capable of such a brutal and horrific crime. William was brought in for questioning, and I guess when he realised that they had his DNA, he very quickly confessed, though the true nature of what happened that night shocked even the most seasoned detectives. William told police he had spent the night of the 21st of February 1993 drinking, smoking marijuana and taking amphetamines. At some point during this drug and alcohol binge, he decided to pay Karen a visit. Now, 16-year-old Daniel alerted to the sound of a car pulling up in the early hours of the morning, went out to see what was going on and saw William pulling up in their driveway. Now, Daniel knew William, so he went to greet him, and William repaid him by striking him in the head and the neck with a tomahawk, killed the teen and left his body face first in the family's dirt driveway. William then went inside the house and found Karen asleep on a mattress on the lounge room floor. He then struck her in the head with the tomahawk, and he struck her in the head and the neck. And after she had passed, he grabbed a bottle of sorbeline and raped her deceased body. 7-year-old Amara and 5-year-old Katrina had slept through these attacks, and William confessed to sexually assaulting Amara before killing her and then moving on to kill Katrina, and both of these young girls were killed in the same way that their mother and their brother was. William then left the house, drove away, and made sure he threw the tomahawk in the Greenough River as he fled. He then made sure he attended the family's funeral in the weeks after to act like he was in mourning. Police said William went through the night step by step, and it was a clinical and methodical fashion. He showed no remorse, no emotion. He also gave no motive whatsoever, only that he arrived at the farm with the intention of killing Karen and her children, but he didn't know why. On the 8th of September 1993, William Patrick Mitchell pled guilty to 4 counts of willful murder, 3 counts of indecently interfering with a corpse, and 1 count of sexual penetration of a child under 13. Now, initially, the true horrific nature of William's crimes were sealed, but some of the details, like what I've just been able to tell you, were released to the public, but there are aspects to this crime that has been sealed. So yes, there is worse. There is more to this horrible, horrible story, and one that we will never find out about. And when the public heard these details, they were horrified, and it resulted in calls for the death penalty to be reinstated. Now, the death penalty, Australia doesn't have it, and it was wiped out in WA in 1984. It's been wiped out in every state and territory across Australia. So the harshest penalty you can get, no matter what crime you commit, is life in prison. Now, on the 14th of October 1993, William was convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of 20 years. The judge overseeing the case, Mr. Justice Neville Owens, said that the murders almost defied description and that William had committed sexual activity of the most depraved kind. He too ordered that the exact way Karen, Daniel, Amara and Katrina were murdered was to be sealed and to never be released to the public. William was sent to jail in Casuarina Prison, which is a medium security prison in Western Australia, and in 2009 he was transferred to Bunbury Regional Prison in Western Australia, which is a regional jail, not as much security, and that sparked a public outcry, with many thinking he was being prepared to be released on parole. Now, Karen's sister Evelyn took the extraordinary step of asking to see William after he was jailed, and a request he agreed to. And in 2010, she found herself sitting opposite the man who murdered her sister, nieces and nephew in cold blood. She said the day she met him, he was breathing heavily, his eyes were lowered, and he appeared nervous. She said she wanted to tell him how much she loved her sister, how she was building a good life for herself and her kids. And she said she didn't ask him why he did what he did because she didn't care. She didn't care what his excuse was. And she said that whatever he said, she would not have believed him anyway. She said he told her he was sorry and that he was a changed man, but she didn't believe him. She went on to say, I said of course he was a model prisoner. He's in protective custody because he doesn't want the other inmates to find out what he did. But there's no guarantee what he would do once he was outside. And she's right. We all know prisoners don't take well to child killers. So I'm guessing if they knew what he did, he would be a dead man walking. Now, she left the meeting with a promise that she would do everything in her power to make sure he spends the rest of his life in jail. And she actually told him, I want you to know I will do everything I can to keep you in jail. Now, in 2013, William became eligible for parole, something which infuriated the community, and a petition garnered over 1,500 signatures to keep him in jail. His request for parole was denied. But at that time, state law meant his parole application was due to be reviewed every 3 years. So in 2016, he was up for parole again. There was another petition going around to get him to keep him behind bars, and that petition garnered over 18,000 signatures. Now, Karen's sister Evelyn wrote to the parole board pleading her case. She told them how her nephew Daniel, or Danny, loved his family, and that if he had any idea what was going to happen to his family when he went out to see who had driven up that driveway that awful morning, he would have fought with all his might to protect them. She also wrote, Karen went through many difficult times and had to fight hard to achieve what she had in life until Mitchell cut her life short. Now, William was denied bail, and in 2018, a new government took office in Western Australia, and they changed the parole rules that changed applications from 3 years to 6 years. And then in 2024, Attorney General John Quigley announced that William would not be eligible for parole until at least 2030, at least. And while Karen's sister Evelyn is around, she will fight for her family and do everything she can to make sure this killer is never released. To quote her, Mitchell knows what I think. I told him as long as I've got breath left in my body, I'm going to do everything I can to keep him inside. And I have no doubt she will. And I would like to say to the family and friends of Karen and Danny and Katrina and Amara, I am so, so sorry for your loss. May their memories be a blessing for you all. And that's it, guys. The story of a guy who was off his face on drugs and booze, and for whatever reason decided he was going to slaughter and sexually assault a family of 4 who were doing nothing but trying to live their lives and sleep. It really is one of the most revolting crimes I've come across, and I just don't understand how someone's brain can go there and do that. Like, was he holding a grudge because Karen rejected him at a party in the weeks before the murders? Who knows? No, it beggars belief. It really does. And I, for one, hope he never sees the outside of a jail cell ever again. He does not deserve to be part of a functioning society. He's a dangerous, dangerous man, and he has no right to live with us outside of a jail cell. He can stay there, he can die there, he can rot there. He deserves that at the very least. And that's it, guys. Another episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans done and dusted. Thank you again for your company. You're all absolute rock stars. And if you are liking my podcast, share away, send me a text, buy me a coffee. You can flick me an email. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube. I am a bit slow getting back to people, but I do get back to you. I promise. So love hearing from you. Love knowing that you're listening to me. I appreciate it all so much. So until next time, guys, stay safe, stay cool, and stay caffeinated. I will catch you all later.